Right. Well, if it's like sausage milk, we probably have that, yeah.
Hey everybody, your buddy Basil here, and you're listening to the Joyspiracy Theory. We got a great interview for you this week. This week we have Andrew, and we talk about all sorts of stuff from bullies to drug dealers to paranoid schizophrenics, and he's got a crazy awesome story that I think is actually going to be very helpful for a lot of people out there dealing with some mental health issues, and he's just had a outstanding journey, and I think it's very important for everybody to hear it. So lucky you that you're here. But before we get into that, just want to remind everybody, if you head over to the Facebook, give that page a like. Why don't you share this episode out with one of your friends? Send them, any episode. This is a good one though. And just let them know that the Joyspiracy Theory is where it's at. We could all use a little bit more of the Joyspiracy Theory in our life. Okay, that's it. I don't think I have a whole lot of announcements this one. We still got the Patreon going, patreon.com/the Joyspiracy Theory, as well as the prayer group that we got going on. If you want to be part of the prayer group, or you have a prayer to be prayed with the prayer group, go ahead and email tjtprayer@gmail.com, and we'll get you all hooked in over there. Okay, scrolling through my list here. I don't think we have anything else. I don't remember if I mentioned it on the last episode, but Canary Cry Radio now has a merchandise page on redbubble.com. We finally caved to all the requests for merch, and I'm trying to decide if I'll be putting Joyspiracy Theories merch up there, or if I make a new account there. So I will let you guys know what I do, and we'll get some Joyspiracy Theory merch out on the streets. On the streets, we got all sorts of fun stuff. We got the logo, we got the spaceman, the Joy Spaceman, all sorts of fun stuff. And I'm sure there'll be a bunch of cat shirts. Yeah, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Ow! Speaking of which, my cat is attacking the microphone. So I guess that means we got to get into the interview. So here you go. This is Andrew. Please sit down, enjoy it, and pay attention. Pay attention. Okay, guys, here we go. 3, 2, 1, woo!
Hello?
There he is. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is awesome. We have a time difference, so I get to record in the daytime. It's a whole new world, my friend.
Yeah, I know. It can't be easy, but...
No.
Hey. Wow.
It's a hard
It's
life.
so good to hear your voice, man.
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's very good to hear your voice. You've got a very pleasant accent to my American ears.
Why, thank you, sir. Yes. Very kind of you to say so.
Where are you located?
Well, I live in Nottinghamshire, okay, and the town that I live in is about 2 miles away from a historic place where the Pilgrim Fathers used to meet before they decided to get in a boat and come over to where you guys are.
Ah, okay, all right, so we got a little bit of a connection there.
Absolutely.
Before we go too far, what are you grateful for today, buddy?
What am I grateful for? I've got to say, more than anything, at the risk of sounding cliche, I am so grateful for second chances in life.
Amen, brother. Amen, brother. I gotta say, excuse me, I gotta take off this jacket. It's heating up in here. Here we go. Yeah, amen, brother. Anything? I mean, that's very cryptic and awesome. I feel like we're gonna get to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't done anything in my life to deserve second chances, and I'm around people each and every day that haven't done anything to deserve second chances. But we have a God that is able to open our eyes and bring us to a place that is like better than we could have imagined. So I'm grateful for second chances, bro.
Awesome. Amen, man. That's awesome. Let's see how many more times I can say awesome in this podcast. Uh, all
So
right.
awesome.
So not Nottinghamshire is
Yep.
is that where Robin Hood is from? Is that where? I,
Yeah, I mean, I live like I can go get in the car, take the kids, and be in Sherwood Forest in about 20 minutes.
really, it's a real place.
Oh yeah. In
Whoa.
fact, there's in Sherwood Forest, there's a tree called the Major Oak, and legend has it that Robin Hood and his merry men used to gather into this tree. And it's a really big tree, and it's held up by stilts and stuff because over the years, too many people running around, it's kind of squished the roots and stuff.
Yeah, it's
But
got to
yeah,
be a big tree. Wow,
yeah,
that's my childhood dreams are coming true.
it,
Actually, last
yeah.
year I took the time and the effort to learn the theme song from the Disney one, the Disney Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest. It's like my
Yeah.
favorite. It's my favorite song to play.
Aw,
Anyways,
that's
so
good.
that's cool, man. So you're living over there. You're in Nottinghamshire. What time is it? It's got to be around 8:30 over there right now.
Yeah, it's about that. It's about 8:30, I think.
Okay.
20.
S- So what's your situation? You got a family? You got kids? What's the deal?
Oh yeah, I've okay. So I got 5 kids, but
Whoa.
only 3 of them are with me.
Okay.
Okay. So, but I guess that's all part of the story, all part of the journey.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah, I got their age range is 11, 10, 9, 8, and 2. So I kind of got my hands full.
Yeah, yeah, that's quite an age range.
Yeah, but yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
Having kids is great, Basil.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
Are you with a partner or
Yeah,
is
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm married. I'm
cool?
married. I have a wonderful wife. She's
Wonderful.
great at cooking and she looks after me
There
and I
you
try to
go.
look after her.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Now, okay, so I gotta say, in America, and we can't really trust anything we hear over here, but what we hear
yep,
is that in the European region, that
yeah.
the number of unchurched people or the number of people leaving the church is even higher than it is in America, which is kind of hard to believe. But did you grow up going to church in a church family, or how did that go for you?
No. Well, I think in general, you've probably got less Christians here, like per capita, than over there, than
Mm-hmm.
where you guys are. But no, my parents, my family, are not Christians. They're um, atheists, I guess.
Uh huh.
Um, and so I didn't grow up going to church. I think the only kind of biblical input I really had, and it wasn't a great amount, would have been when I was about 5 years old, like, oh no, between 5 to 7, um, that I can remember, hearing stories at school, like Daniel in the Lion's Den and stuff like that. But I don't think anything really major when I was a kid.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
if I'm taking a guess, I'd say maybe you're in your early 30s, mid 30s. I mean, you got some old kids, so it's kind of hard to tell. Well,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm 36.
oh yeah, there we
So,
go. Man, I'm good.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
you are. You always seem to get that right. That's really cool.
and I promise you, I don't do any snooping. I just pull it from the ether. Um,
Yeah, I
okay.
believe you. 'Cause my age isn't on Facebook, so I believe you.
Thank you. I get some people who are saying, everybody thinks you're so good at guessing things, but you see, I have all these people as friends on Facebook. Um,
Yeah,
so okay, so you grew up with eight. I'm always astounded because obviously I've said it on the show before. I grew up in a Christian home, and that's I kind of got
mhm,
lucky in that sense, in that it was never really a big deal to me. Um, that and it has its ups
yeah.
and downs there, but I'm just astounded how people with growing up with atheist parents or whatever,
Hmm.
atheists are very, most of them are very nice people, but
Definitely.
I'm just like, how could you even make the transition?
Well, it's a long story. I think for me, the main probable cause and factor of me coming to Jesus, and it is a long story, was probably to do with stuff that I've heard you guys, you spoke about on here before, is the whole supernatural encounters as a child.
Right.
Because I when I was about 4 or 5, I saw a demon. I saw a spirit. Um, so like my mum told me to go to bed. I came running down to the bottom of the stairs, looked up to the top of the stairs, and I saw this like green figure with yellow eyes. And I was petrified. And I was like, "Mummy, mummy, there's a monster at the top of the stairs." That is after I kind of like stood frozen for like what seemed like forever.
Right.
Um,
Whoa.
and yeah, so I saw this thing. My mom was like, looked under the bed, looked in the wardrobe and stuff like that. Oh, there's no monsters there. And yeah, so like I remember laying in bed and around for like we lived in that house for another year or two, and like weird things would happen while I was laying in bed and stuff. Like whenever I go to bed, so like stuff moving in the darkness and stuff like that. Not like literal objects moving, but like movement like on my wallpaper and stuff like that.
Oh.
You know what? I don't know. Did you ever have Postman Pat in America?
Postman Pat. No, just the very
Yeah.
use of the word postman uh,
Okay.
pretty much
So
excludes it from any American
I
broadcast.
guess it's an exclusive British children's cartoon and book series, I guess. But I had Postman Pat wallpaper, which meant that my wallpaper was completely covered with small cartoons of Postman Pat and Jess the Cat. And anybody that's in the UK listening to this will completely get what I'm talking about. I don't feel stupid right now.
Okay.
Yeah. All these, so like the figures on the wallpaper, they would like move around and like interact with each other and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I know I'm kind of jumping in the deep end here, but
No,
I
that's
remember
how we roll around here.
sweet. I remember going to sleep and stuff like that, and almost and having kind of like visions and voices. It was almost like have you seen the Batman movie, Batman versus Superman? And
Yeah,
Batman's
unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. Well, I agree with you on that. Yeah. And Batman wakes up from a dream, and there's like this thing in front of him, like um, going, "You've got to find out who Lois Lane is. You've got to kill Lois Lane," or something like that. And then
Right.
he wakes up again, and he's like, "It was a dream in a dream."
Yeah.
Well, like I remember laying in bed at night and having like voices that I could kind of hear, and I could kind of pick up on that, like some kind of form or something, but basically like stuff trying to say, "Oh, you've got to save me. You've got to,
Ooh.
got to come to where I am," and stuff like that. It was really, really weird.
Right.
And I know
So
this,
someone was trying to make contact, start a conversation with you.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never tried to like have any kind of contact back because I mean, I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do, and as well as that, there was like I I was really afraid because I knew what I'd seen, and I knew that it was awful, it was horrible. I mean, I remember like looking at the top of the stairs, and this figure, this green figure, about 4 foot tall, with yellow eyes, like looking at me with this like evil smile, like you know, like facial expressions, like I'm gonna get you kind of thing. It
Yeah,
was
I was gonna
terrifying.
ask what he was doing up there, but being generally menacing seems to be the
Yeah,
MO of a lot of these things.
yeah, just kind of like waiting for me, like some nasty surprise.
Right.
But but yeah. So I remember thinking like being just fearful for the next couple of years, pretty much when we lived in that house, like thinking like, is this thing gonna come out? Because I had a 1-year-old baby sister in the next room, so I just kind of felt really vulnerable. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
so it
kind of
really
difficult.
really stuck with you. You could feel and sense things still
Mhm.
happening around you.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, especially like when I went to bed and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had cartoons moving around on your walls,
That's right. Yeah,
messing
it
with your
kind
head.
of put me off Postman Pat.
Yeah, Postman Pat has a whole different connotation in your life.
Oh yeah.
He's a tool of a dark passenger.
Yes, there's more to Postman Pat than meets the eye.
Yeah, sounds like you could do like a spin-off series.
Oh gosh. Yeah, just not for children.
Yeah, no.
Hey.
Postman Pat's just starts. He's part of some dark occult cabal of postmen who go around and deliver the dark workings of their evil master.
It's true. It's true.
Out of all the entertainment Hollywood possibilities that have come out of this show, Postman Pat is definitely the darkest.
Oh yeah. You need to watch out for that guy.
So
Yeah.
so you had things going on, things where it was generally scary. How long did this last for?
Well, we stayed in that house for a couple of years. Then we moved house, not too far away, probably about like 5, 10 miles away. And things kind of settled down. I got into a new school. I wasn't very good at making friends at that age. Um, so we moved schools, moved house, and things kind of became a bit more normal. I actually did make some good friends and stuff. Um, school was okay. Like I used to spend all my time playing like the original Nintendo
Oh
up in
yeah,
my room, Super Mario.
there you go.
Um, yeah, and I mean I enjoyed school for what that was worth.
Uh huh.
I was my teachers always said I was a bright child. I did well pretty much at everything. I enjoyed like the school plays and I wasn't very good at sports, but you can't be good at everything.
Nope, that's true.
Um,
Don't I know it?
and and yeah, so it's kind of I actually have quite a lot of difficulty with my memory, which will come to understand a little bit later. But of those years, but up till then, up till about the time when I was about 10 or 11, stuff was pretty much kind of normal,
Uh
or
huh.
as normal as it could have been.
Yeah.
There was nothing, but like in the new house, I didn't see anything. I didn't have any, supernatural experiences or anything. But I think that I still probably it has left an impression on me. I was still kind of fearful about what people thought about me and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
What was the family like, or family life like at this point?
it was cool. I mean, my parents both worked in mental health. Um, I think my dad used to work.
Oh, so their little
Yeah.
boy seeing monsters at the top of the stairs was a whole different situation for them.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I spoke to different people, and the whole connection between mental health and the supernatural is that there's a clear divide. Everything can be explained using psychology. Anything that you experience is just your mind kind of, formulating and processing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
interpreting things like that.
absolutely. Um, but it was a happy time. It was a happy time, man. I mean, even now, my parents are still together. Um, you know, we still did Christmas. We still had birthdays, and it was happy times.
Good.
Um, yeah, yeah, it was good. I just
Awesome.
don't remember so much of it.
And now,
Yeah.
why is that? You kind of alluded to something about that earlier. Why don't you? Did you take some footballs to the head or
Oh
something?
yeah. No, I just kind of mashed my brain up with drugs, really.
Oh,
Um,
that'll do it.
yeah,
When did
yeah.
that start?
It was like I was 13.
Hey, early
Um,
bloomer, nice.
yeah. If well, that's what I thought. I thought I was very cool. It was great. I got in with some older guys. Um, one of my friends, who was like a year older than me, his mum had got multiple sclerosis, and we found out that she was growing weed in a greenhouse in her back garden. So my friend, his name was Tristan. He started selling little matchboxes of weed around the village where we lived, and one thing led to another. I mean, I remember the first time that I did it. I was with another friend of mine who was a bit older than me, and his sister's boyfriend was really into like amphetamine and speed, and other stuff. And we went around to his house, which is in the next village, and we basically just smoked all this stuff straight off pure, and it was psychedelic, man. I remember like going and sitting in his in this lounge in the front room, and like I start hallucinating like mad. I'm looking at my friend and he's talking to me, and I'm like, I can't even talk to you right now. I'm like, honestly, his like face started morphing into all different faces, and like at one point he was Super Mario, coming back to Super Mario. It was really, really weird.
Can I say real quick that
Yeah.
matchboxes filled with weed is probably the most British thing I've ever heard in my life?
Really?
Matchboxes. Yeah, no little baggies, just matchboxes. I don't know.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, we were like, he was probably like 14 years old. He's not going to be able to get loads of little baggies.
Yeah, you know
Mm.
it's interesting. I gotta say, just as we're on this cultural exploration, um,
Yeah.
there's two main ideas I think of at least people like me have about England, and that is
I
obviously number one,
love
the like really posh, fancy
it.
version, and then kind of
Yes.
the like really like ultra gritty version. Kind of the people
Okay.
forgotten or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't even know how to put it into cultural terms. But there's this like idea that there's the super fancy English, and then there's like this super gnarly English.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that like, you guys over there in the States, a lot of what you see of over here is through the media.
Yep.
So you've got your different movies that portray different things, different aspects. But I think in reality, you've probably got just pretty much a full spectrum, you know, just like where you are, I'm sure,
Right.
you'll get the people that are well off and stuff like that, whose maybe their parents have never done drugs or anything, but yet they do. The kids get into it, and
Right. Right.
ob obviously they're. I mean, I fortunately for me, I didn't grow up in a city, so it wasn't too rough. I think it's different in the cities and stuff like that. I mean, you get a lot of different cultures, and you get the clashes and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know, Basil. I don't know how similar or dissimilar it would be to your average, um, Americans' perception.
Yeah.
But I have exactly the same thing of over there.
Yeah, I
You
guess
know.
that makes a total sense. I mean, for me, it's like either Downton Abbey or Train Spotting, and
Oh
and
yeah.
and for
Well, I was
America,
train spotted, bro.
no, okay, that was my
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're definitely train spotting. Okay, awesome. All right. Well,
Yeah.
so you were train spotting, looking at your friend, and he looked like Mario. So you got into it pretty early, man. It seems like, I'm kind of letting this podcast as a whole just sort of morph into whatever it is, and a lot of it
Cool.
is learning that a lot of people are doing drugs way too early, man.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you that was like 22 years ago,
Yeah,
and it's worse now.
it's.
It's worse now.
You mean culturally or with you? Do we need to have a?
Oh, it's with me, Basil,
Oh, okay.
No, of course not. No, it's worse now for the youngsters because there's like I don't know if you have it in America, but do you have legal highs?
Yeah, well, marijuana is legal in some states
Right.
recreationally. Yeah.
Right. Well, just recently they've banned it, but over here, for I don't know, say the last 10 years, you've been able to buy, you could go into a legal high shop and you could buy something that was like, I don't know, let's just say it's ecstasy with one chemical component slightly different. So it's not ecstasy, but if you take it, it'll do exactly the same thing. And
Yeah.
you don't need to go to a drug dealer. You can just go to the shop and buy it over the counter.
That's very interesting. No, we do not have that, with the exception of a couple things that will sneak in and out, like that bath
Mm.
salts stuff. I don't know if you heard about that when that was happening.
No,
Bath salts was one of them. Salvia is one. I'm sure you're familiar with that. And
I've heard of it.
and yeah, those are just things that, and they get cracked down on pretty quick because people
Yeah,
really go nuts and it starts causing public health issues. Um, but there
yeah,
are, back in the day, I had a friend who did have some ins with like LSD type chemicals that weren't
right,
LSD, so they weren't technically illegal. You couldn't buy them at
right.
a store, but you could make them at your house or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And it was, yeah, it's like didn't fit the actual legal category of LSD, but it did pretty much the same exact thing.
Man, I'm glad I didn't know how to make that stuff.
Yeah, no, that stuff gets
I would not
wild.
be here today.
So you
I just
guys,
wanted,
oh,
come on.
no, no, you go.
Thank you, sir.
You're much more
Um,
interesting than I am.
oh, I don't know about that, but I just wanted to mention that when I was about 11,
Hmm.
um, I went to stay over at a friend of the family. They used to like babysit us quite a lot. And hey, I just want to mention something. To anybody that actually knows me, like, and then I'm speaking to you right now, I'm doing something that they're going to be like, why is he sounding all American? And I was listening to one of your casts on when I was at work because I listen to the conspiracy theory conspiracy theory at work a lot,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and you were talking to Mike something who does the
Mike Davis.
emotional intelligence, Mike
Yeah.
Davis, right? And you were saying that sometimes when you speak to people or when you spend time with certain people that have a different accent, you start picking it up. And
Right.
I'm like, no way! That's the first time I've ever heard anybody even hint at anything like that. And I like do that all the time. And I was like, oh, wow, I have like, there's somebody out there like me. It's so amazing.
That's gonna be funny. By the end of this, you're gonna be speaking with an American accent, and I'm gonna be the Downton Abbeying all over the place.
Absolutely. Yeah,
We'll
let's do
switch, or we'll meet somewhere in the middle, and anybody who's listening is like, "What is wrong with these people? Are they having an aphasia?" Um,
it. Yeah, I'm morphing into you and you're morphing into me.
yeah, that'll set the
So,
YouTube channels off real tough. Um,
gosh.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
So continuing on.
yeah, so I was like 11, I'm pretty sure, and I went to go stay with a friend of the family they were babysitting because my parents tended to work quite a lot, and often I go stay with my grandparents or stay with like close friends of the family and stuff. And this, the guy, they had a child who was about 3 years older than me, a guy, and we were sleeping in. He wanted to sleep in like the treehouse. Well, I call it a treehouse. It's not really a treehouse. It's more like a shed on stilts with a very small tree underneath it. I think eventually it would have become a treehouse, but not while we were
Yeah,
not while we were
that's
kids.
that's kind of interesting. They built a house, a little shed on stilts above a tree. Was the idea that the tree was going to grow and lift up the house?
I don't know. To be honest, I think that when they moved there, it was already like that. It was just like a perk of the house.
That is so weird. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we ended up sleeping in this treehouse shed. And I mean, I don't mean to go into this in such an abrupt way, but it is an important detail of what's happened in my life.
Sure.
And to cut a long story short, this guy uh, sexually assaulted me
Oh,
while we were there. Yeah, and the it wasn't necessarily that what happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of people out there that have been through a heck of a lot more than I have. But while this was going on, and it was very dark, I could hear um, I could hear laughing. It was almost like there was a circle of people around me, laughing, and I was really really scared, and yeah, it was really really freaky.
Wow. Holy smokes. Now,
I know.
who was this guy? This was your friend or something like that?
He was my friend, but his parents and my parents were like close friends.
And
They'd worked
what age was
stuff.
this?
So like I was 11, he would have been like 13
Oh,
or
wow.
14.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think I was in the first year of secondary school. Even us, Basil, even what we call schools is different. So like I'd have been about 11 in my first year of a big school.
So it's like middle school, I guess, is what it would be here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So I was
11.
like,
That sounds like middle school.
right.
Yeah.
And so we slept in the treehouse. The next day, um, it was really weird because like I really wanted to tell his parents, and but I couldn't. Like there was I couldn't I didn't know how to do it. I mean, I think as a kid I was kind of like I would talk to you if you spoke to me, but
Right.
just actually starting off conversations and talking to people, especially adults, grown-ups, I wasn't so great at it. But I remember looking in the parents' eyes, and I was like, it's like I was screaming on the inside, and I felt like they they could see it in me, or they could hear it or something, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't tell my parents, and we used to still go over there, year after year and stuff like that. So, but it didn't happen again. Um,
That's crazy. And you never brought it up with this guy again.
no,
Wow.
no,
Wow.
I didn't know, like, I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah. Now, was this, as time went on, was this something like some people report where you kind of forget about it or block it out, or is it something that stuck with you?
I think like internally, I always wanted to ask him, like, what was that all about?
Yeah.
Um, because we'd actually always pretty much been good friends.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I mean, we are actually on speaking terms. Like years and years later, we talked about it, and I know, or I mean, I know that he's not like a child abuser. I just think he had his own issues, and he was going through phases of puberty and hormones and difficult family life and stuff. So
Right.
um, we have had some reconciliation, and I told him that I forgive him and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
um, at the time,
Yeah.
it was pretty heinous.
But even with this happening, I mean, it seems like there was a spiritual, supernatural encounter aspect to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, as I was saying, so like this happened when I was 11. I was 13 when I first experienced the weed, and I don't know, like it didn't take very long um, before, because it's like my peers, the people I was hanging around with, we all started doing it. We were all after a year of just experimenting with weed, just at the weekends and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Within a year of that, it was like there was a group of us that would go into town, go to the park, get 2 liter bottles of cider. Um, it was horrible. It was like drinking battery acid, and we'd smoke weed, get drunk, and anything could happen, and anything did happen. Um, but like for me, I found that some people they smoke weed or they do drugs, and it actually makes them more social.
Right.
Like with alcohol, yes, you kind of lose your inhibitions, but for me, it kind of made me get sucked within myself.
Uh huh.
Like, um, And so I always struggled really badly with trying to form relationships with the other guys my own age. Um, so, I was going to school. On one hand, there was lots of things I loved doing. Like I was pretty much terrible at sports, but I loved playing basketball. And there was a guy who was like one of my best friends, and he played for Nottinghamshire for the basketball team. So like I used to go play basketball with him and like quite regularly, and I got quite good at basketball, shooting those 3 pointers.
There you
And
go.
I made the school basketball team, which was pretty cool. Got to play for 2 or 3 years, I think it was, in the basketball team. Um, as time went by, though, so like by the age of 15, I was I was doing drugs every day. Or say doing drugs, I was smoking weed every day.
Yeah.
So I'd come home from school, get changed, go back out, get into town, get some weed, get high, come home, try and sneak upstairs without being seen, or talking to my parents with my eyes as big as like flying saucers or something. Like, and I don't know. I don't know if they figured it out or not, like what was going on. But
Was
and
that the
also,
type of situation where they would have done something about it if they had known?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they could do.
Mm.
Really. Oh, I just want to rewind again. Sorry, because I forgot something else.
No, that's fine.
So, like when I was about the same time when I'd started smoking weed, or maybe the year before, I had to take a bus to school, and it used to take about just 15 minutes on the bus. And I had a friend who was a year older than me called Nathan, and he was quite a chubby guy. And we used to play Nintendos a lot and stuff. And he started getting picked on the bus. Um, He'd get called names and stuff like that. And it once I started riding the bus, it kind of got to me. I was quite sensitive, and I didn't like seeing my friend getting that abuse. But at the same time, I didn't really know what to do, because the older guys at the back of the bus would be just really abusive and stuff.
Yeah.
And at one point, I was like, guys, just leave him alone. And one of the guys that was doing it, called Woody, not the cowboy. This is
Woody.
completely reach for the sky. He basically wanted a fight with me, or the other guys egged him on to have a fight with me. So we ended up having a fight like later on. We organized it, um, and we came out onto the park in our village, and he came out. He got like shin pads on. He got his steel toe caps on. He's like, body armor and stuff like that. I got a pair of leather gloves, and I cut the fingers off, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna. It felt a bit like David and Goliath, except for I was bigger than him. But I think to a degree, because I'm quite sensitive, I had a sense of justice. I wanted to beat the bad guy, and I wanted to show him that, or I wanted to show the world or the universe or whatever, that evil can't have its way.
Right.
Didn't quite work out that way though. I'm not a fighter, and I wasn't then. So I end up getting punched in the face, like like my eyes were watering like mad, like not crying, just watering. But I'm on the floor, and there's a circle of about like 15, 20 kids all in a circle around me, and my friend Nathan, he wasn't there, and they're screaming, get him, kick him, and I'm on the floor, and I'm thinking, what on earth is going on here? Why do these people? I'm here to try and help somebody out, to sort of protect them, and these guys just want to see my blood. And I'm thinking, that's it now. I'm on the floor. I can't really see very well. It's time for me to get a proper good paste in. But it didn't happen though. I managed to get up. and I was just like, it's finished. I'm going. And they didn't chase after me or anything. I managed to walk off the field on to round a corner. When I got round the corner, I pegged it. I legged it like crazy until I knew that they would have really have had to run to catch up with me. And like I was just so emotionally overwhelmed, and it was like I just couldn't reconcile what was going on, and I was crying, and I was like, God, if you're really out there, I need you to help me to fight my way through this life because I can't do it on my own.
That's interesting. It's how did you? I'm always fascinated by that. How did you know to cry out to a God that
I have no
you
idea.
hadn't been raised to believe in?
I have no idea, Basil.
Yeah,
It was like instinct.
yeah,
I don't know. I'd never heard the gospel. I'm sure of that, but I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
But and then after that, I didn't think about that at all. I was like, whoa, I've just prayed. That was weird. And I walked home and sorted myself out because I was bleeding a little bit. And I told my parents about that, and they ended up talking to this guy's parents. But excuse me. After that, because I was so sensitive and I cared about what people thought about me, and I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I was going to get victimized, I actually ended up walking home from school every day. Excuse me. So that would take me like an hour
Instead
because I
of
didn't.
riding the bus.
Right,
Mm,
right. I
yeah,
didn't want to ride the bus with guys that were just awful.
yeah,
Uh, because it wasn't necessarily that I was afraid of being beaten up. I was just afraid of the confrontation. I was afraid of just how people were going to be like bad to me and stuff like that.
yeah.
Like
It's you
the
don't want to put
atmosphere.
yourself in a hostile atmosphere for sure. I mean, that's I always find that that's a pretty for many uh, human beings. Avoiding any sort of hostile atmosphere is one of the strongest instincts, I think.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. Yeah. So I was kind of distancing myself away because of that. I was separating myself away from those people, but I was kind of forming a habit in my life of just generally distancing myself from people in general. I didn't feel like I was very good at like making relationships and stuff like that. And then the kind of fear built upon fear. So I was like, if people are going to be like this with me, I'm going to meet other people, and eventually they're going to end up being like that with me as well.
Right.
So I, I, when I was about 14, I got introduced to my first drug dealer. Um, which is a bit young as well. Yeah, I went around to his house and we smoked weed, and this guy seemed to take an interest in me. Um, and he's like, "Hey, anytime you want to come back, spend some time." So I was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Um,
Just making friends
so
with the drug dealers.
yeah, yeah, I think yeah, I kind of felt really cool about it because yeah, it was not only was he there were other guys there that were a lot older than me, and I kind of looked up to him because, well, I don't know. I guess in a way, just because I was so insecure that anybody that looked like they had it together and I had an opportunity to get to know them a little bit, that kind of was like, wow, these guys are cool. When really now I'll kind of go, yeah, they probably weren't that cool, to be honest. Yeah. So,
Hindsight.
so oh gosh, yeah, it's a wonderful thing. If only I knew then what I knew now, Basil.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, so I started spending a lot of time around at this guy's house, and he was an alcoholic, and he used to smoke weed every day, um, and he had a bit of a split personality. I learned, and he basically kind of poisoned my mind against all my school friends.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, I think it was like he began to almost need me there, like a codependency or something
Yeah,
like
I was
that.
gonna say it doesn't seem like it would be too hard to turn you against your school friends, seeing as how up until then you had pretty much had betrayal after betrayal.
Yeah, but it's difficult to kind of to to get everything across because there were guys in my life
Yeah.
that I did enjoy spending time with.
Okay.
It's just for some reason, I don't know, I didn't end up staying with them.
Yeah.
And I think to a degree, this guy was like, I don't know, like an agent for negative change in my life,
Mm.
because he didn't like them and they didn't like him. And I was like, well, I don't want anybody to fall out. Why can't we just all be friends? And so, yeah, so I kind of drifted away from my friends. And I think some of my friends, they did have like my best interests at heart. They did, they tried to warn me um, about what this guy was doing and stuff like that, but I wasn't really interested. I think I just felt pulled towards him, or like not pulled like from me pulling nearer, but something pulling me closer. Um, and yeah, during the same time, we 13, 14, 15 would go to what at the time seemed like the wildest, craziest parties in the world, getting blind drunk. I mean, during these years as well, I did mushrooms, acid, quite a lot of amphetamine, quite a lot of ecstasy. Um, it was just a routine of destruction. I mean, believe it or not, and it's a miracle. I actually came out of school when I finished school. Well, when I finished my GCSEs, I actually passed all my exams. Like I didn't study for anything at all.
Hey, that's pretty
And
impressive.
I know, well, yeah, and also like some of my exams, I went to like intoxicated. It's just awful, just awful. Kids, if you're listening, don't do what I did. It's not good.
Even though you
Take your life
passed.
seriously. Even right, right. There's some kind of grace there, but I couldn't believe it. I actually stayed on at school for an extra year. After we do our GCSEs, they call it, you finish at like 16, you can stay on and do A levels. And I stayed on, but oh man, like I was quite good at maths at school. And so I decided that I would do A level maths and A level biology. And I sat through like one afternoon of A level biology, and I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? It just mashed my brain, and I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way that I'm in the right frame of mind to be able to learn anything, let alone complicated stuff. Um, so like my whole sort of social life was just like a mess and it was catching up with me. But I had the routine of school, which at least kept me going.
Yeah, that's great.
But once I got to sort of like 16, 17, oh yeah, when I was about 15, my auntie gave me a couple of books. Have you ever heard of the Celestine Prophecy?
No. Celestine
No.
Prophecy. No.
No, like Celestine, like celestial.
Oh, Celestine. Nope, nope, nope. Still no.
Yeah. Okay, so she gave me a book called the Celestine Prophecy and a book about angels. Now, I read these two books. The Celestine Prophecy, it's a fiction book, but it's like obviously it's written by a new ager because it's got all kinds of stuff in there about how you can cause plants to grow by using the power of your soul and different
Sure.
colored auras and yeah, and I read it and I don't know, I was like a sponge. I just kind of like soaked it up. And I'm like, wow, this is reality. Like it's almost like I was like, this book has been given me from the universe or something. I think I was so hungry for truth, so
Yeah,
hungry
you're
for.
just soaking it up, huh?
Oh man, yeah, yeah. I I remember being around at this drug dealer's house when other people were there, and they would be having like quite deep conversations, but it's almost like I was seeing what they were saying on a much deeper level, like on a spiritual level, and I
Uh-huh.
thought they were like speaking in special code and stuff, and that they were like they were they were trying to keep me out of this secret knowledge or something that they had, and I don't know, it was really weird. So skipping forward again, finished. I managed to stay in school for another year, although I dropped the maths and I dropped the biology, and I also ended up dropping the other course that I was doing right at the end. That I couldn't see it through. At the same time, I'd had girlfriends and um, I say girlfriends, girls in my life that I thought I liked and cared for. I, also, Basil, I was a very proud person. Um, I thought I was better than everybody.
Yeah.
I, I saw how people treated other people, and because most of the time they didn't treat each other very nice, and the guys always treated the girls not nice. I thought, I must be different. I must be better. I must be superior, like in a moral way or something. And also like I was kind of good at singing. I was good at drawing. I was good at acting and impressions and creative stuff. And so I just, I was a really proud person. Um, Man, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No,
So when I was, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that because I remember looking back at that, even that age, and even, I mean, older,
Mm,
relatively recently, as far as the lifespan of a person goes. You spend so much time, especially for people who spend a lot of time in their own head. You look
yeah,
around, and I would say even people who are drawn towards justice, like it sounds like you were.
yeah,
You're drawn towards justice, yet you're kind of an introvert, and it really is kind of a breeding ground for this pride. Uh, at
mm,
least, but it's all happening inside. It's like this internal vision of yourself where you're stuck in your own thoughts. You think your thoughts are the best thoughts, and you think you have, a moral authority, but then you're not really able to see your own actions that you're taking on the outside because we're very good at justifying things to ourselves. I think that's one thing that
absolutely.
I think that's one thing that Christians often get in trouble with, especially because, oftentimes we are very preoccupied with justice as we should be, and
Yeah,
we, you know, for the most part, claim some sort of moral or ethical high ground. And, a spiritual life is very much an inward expression. Again, for the most part, there's
true.
obviously external expressions of that. And it really sets you up to have a disconnect between that inner uh, pride that you feel from that, which isn't necessarily a
Mm,
bad thing, but when your external actions don't match that, you're not able to
yeah,
see yourself. You're not able to see how you're
yeah.
you're acting towards other people, and you're wondering why everybody's such a jerk to you. It's usually because you're just not paying very much attention to yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That's me. That was me all over,
Yeah.
bro. And it is very. It can be like that, I guess, as well. It's kind of. I think for me, I kind of go in and out of phases. Where if you become aware that actually, if you're judging other people, you're not giving room in your own heart to have love for them.
Hmm.
It's kind of the process, I guess, where I mean, God has had to deal with pride in my life, on and off, ever since I gave my life to Him, and I think it was one of the bigger strongholds in my life was pride. But at the time, I mean, at the time, I didn't see it at all. I was complete in my own mind. I was completely justified for the way that I felt because I was right and they were wrong.
Yeah.
And that's what it came down to. But going back to the whole thing with reading these books and stuff, it kind of put ideas in my mind that I'd never really thought about, and I kind of uh, my kind of outlook on life was kind of like a dot to dot puzzle. You have those in the States, right?
Yeah, the connect
Like
the
join the
dots is
dots.
what we call it.
Right. You get what connect the dots.
Yeah.
So you get one of those, but then you take all the numbers away and just join random dots. You don't
Huh.
get the same picture.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of like what my perception was like. Um, I think when I left school, by the time I'd left school, okay, I was so messed up in my mind. I actually thought that I had magical powers, and I was trying to develop that. I could see, I could, I don't know whether you would call it your imagination or whether it actually was the spiritual realm but I would imagine I could do stuff in my mind, like I'd be walking down the road, imagining flipping cars over as they're driving past. And
Yeah.
yeah, and in my mind, I was like, if I keep on doing this, I'm actually going to be able to do it, you know?
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel like, well, I'll speak for myself. I've definitely
Sure.
had periods of my life that has been the case.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from. I feel like maybe there's a lot more people out there who have had these inklings,
Right.
and just have never had the opportunity or the venue to talk about it. But yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. I
Wow.
remember, now it's a long time ago. I'm getting a little up there.
Sure.
Um, just the, just rip, yeah, anyways, you explained it perfectly.
Yeah.
Especially the flipping cars, crushing cars, doing stuff like that,
Yeah.
and you're seeing it in your mind's eye, and you just
Mm,
kind of know, you're like, wow, I better be
yeah.
careful, because if I do this enough, something's actually gonna happen.
That's right. That's right. I know the day is coming when I'm going to be able to jump from rooftop to rooftop, run, swinging from lamppost to lamppost. I'm like the Uber man,
Yeah.
it's and so like as this is happening, and I lose the framework of the school routine, I kind of end up going more and more into a dark place. Now, the whole thing of being unable to relate with people, we mix that with the thinking that I'm developing mental powers and stuff like that. I also, I mean, I'd keep a journal and I'd write down all these weird and wacky things and stuff like that. And I think to a degree, I may have been actually um, beginning to channel
Right,
like
right.
automatic writing.
Yeah.
Looking back, um, and I mean, whenever I would do a cartoon, I used to spend so much time drawing, but I wouldn't think about what I was drawing. I would just start drawing, and every time I would draw something, it would like it had some kind of representation in the real world.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I wish I could explain it in my mind, but I was also experimenting with um, trying to affect people using my mind. Kind of like the men that stare at goats um, movie. And what I would do, and I know this is going to sound nuts. I mean, if people can relate to some of the things I've been talking about, I don't think many people will try this. I could be wrong, but so I would, when there was nobody home at my mum and dad's house, I would flick through the channels on the satellite TV, and I'd flick on to the the Houses of Parliament channel, okay,
So it's like
which was
a
based,
live stream, basically, of the government.
yeah, in the Houses of Commons in London, kind of sitting there making the occasional speech, but it's not exactly entertainment. I'll be honest. And what I would do, I would be like staring at the TV, and I would point my finger at the TV because my finger was like my magic wand, and I would be like willing them to get up, to sit down, to say stuff. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And in my mind, I was convinced that I was getting through to
Yeah,
where
you
they
can
were.
kind of start to like see patterns, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the guy you're
Right,
pointing at actually stands up.
right. And as well as that, I used to go around to this guy's house that he was the weed dealer. And very often he'd fall asleep like at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and I just watch TV. And I don't know, even up to now, I don't fully understand exactly how this worked, whether it was in my head, whether it was spiritual, whether it was both, whether it was neither. But to me, at that point in my life, I thought that television was some kind of um, astral projection avatar simulator.
Yeah, you must have been doing some great drugs over there, man.
Well, to me, like I'd be watching something, but I would be in the TV and I would be like one of the main characters. And the people, if I made a decision, that would be what happened
Mm.
in the. I mean, I remember, gosh, fast forward a couple of years, it's probably around the same time, just before 9/11. It was, I think Bill Clinton was still the president at the time, or maybe he just got out of presidency. That was well before 9/11, wasn't it?
Yep.
But it was late at night. I was watching a Monty Python movie, and I was one of the main characters, and Bill Clinton, he was one of the other main characters because he was in it. He was in it.
Yeah.
He was in it, and his daughter Chelsea, she was in it as well. Of course, they had different skin and faces and everything,
Yeah,
and
sure. But their
and in
essence
the
was inhabiting the character.
absolutely, and they knew it. They knew it,
And
honestly.
they were there on purpose with you.
Yeah, well, I think maybe they were no. They were forced into it. They were like
Oh.
the darkness was putting them in this, making them pay for something, and I was like, I was threatening Bill Clinton that I'm gonna if you don't do this or whatever, I can't remember what it was, but I'm gonna do this to your daughter, and I'm gonna do this, and he was like, there's not a lot I can do. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of scared or whatever. Um, but it was weird. It was like celebrities, politicians, especially the American ones, were
Yeah.
um, they were in my astral projection TV time. Um, so
So
that's
there's
kind of
really something going on with you at that time. I mean, you were really into the supernatural aspect of life, and I mean, talk about turning inward. I mean, that's pretty much as inward as you can go. That's, I mean, especially with parents in the mental health field, I feel like that you would have gotten some different reactions sharing that with some of your parents' colleagues.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
So what did this develop into? I mean, it seems like this, this is starting to border on some, uh, you know, uh, occult type, Illuminati type stuff. I mean, you've got
yeah,
astral projection with Bill Clinton and all sorts of stuff going on.
yeah. I know. Well, just another thing. I used to walk home to my village, and when I would walk home, it'd take me about an hour. It's the same as when I used to walk home from school. And on a clear night, I would look up at the stars, and the stars would speak to me. They would speak to me with little flashes, and I'd be like going, "What are you trying to say to me?" And also like the stars would, I don't know, like lines would form between them to form like constellations and stuff like that. It was really really far out. Um, there was a lot of things that were really weird, but to me, that all of these weird things were the filter through which I was viewing life.
Right.
Okay, um, so one day, I was at home, like 17 still. I was pointing my finger at the Houses of Parliament and doing my thing, making them do their dance or whatever. Um, and my dad came in, um, and he's like, Andrew, what are you doing? And I had this sort of awful mental schism in my head. I'm like, well, if I just tell him that I'm trying to use magic to control the people on TV, he might think that's a bit strange, right? But I can't just say, I'm just doing nothing. I'm just I didn't know what to do. And something like broke in my mind. Um, and I don't know, I kind of got locked up, like mentally locked up. Basically, I kind of had a mental breakdown, to be honest.
Yeah.
So um, that's always what I refer to it as. So like, my dad was like, I think we need to take you to see a doctor. So we got an appointment. I went to see a doctor, um, and he was saying that he thinks that I should have some psychiatric evaluation. They gave me some medication, um, and so I came home, take the medication, and basically I don't know what the word is, but I took this medication and I couldn't move. Um, I couldn't talk. My tongue swelled up inside my mouth.
Ooh.
Like I thought, yeah, I thought I was going to choke on my own tongue, and I was paralyzed. Um, and so my parents had to like feed me and stuff like that. And I think that went on for a couple of weeks. And I remember like sitting laying on the sofa at home with the TV on, and it was around Christmas time too. And the stuff on the TV was like affecting me even more. It's like it was pushing back. Um, and I was just thinking, am I going to be like this for the rest of my life? I don't want to be in a vegetative state for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that sounds like some pretty extreme medication there.
Yeah, honestly, I'd never known anything like it. It was horrible. We went to see a different doctor and the psychiatrist, and basically I got diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic.
Ooh, yikes. That's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. They spoke to my father when I wasn't there and said, you know, and I mean, my dad knows all about that kind of stuff. I mean, he's worked with people with paranoid schizophrenia for the last 30 to 40 years. But they said, Andrew's not going to be able to have a quote unquote normal life. He's going to have to be on medication the rest of his life. He's not going to be able to drive or probably, have a family or anything like that. And my dad, yeah, so that hit my family really hard. That hit me hard. And to be honest, Basil, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that I'd got schizophrenia. I mean, one, I didn't know really that much about it, but to me, it just seemed like, I mean, this is the classic line, that they were out to get me.
Yeah.
You know, it's to me. I mean, I had other things. I had like dreams of fame. Like I was convinced that I was gonna go on a train to London and get greeted by this guy called oh gosh, yeah, this singer anyway, and like Phil Collins, the True Colors guy. And I was going to be famous. He was going to teach me all of his ways, and I was going to be famous and stuff like that. Like I truly believed some really strong delusions in my own mind.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like you fit the types of diagnostical terms that would go with paranoid schizophrenia. I mean,
Yeah,
your astral
yeah,
projection TV situations, the stars twinkling, trying to speak to you.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And everything was against me. Like the world was against me.
right,
Like people were in on it. They
right.
had to be, you
Yeah.
know. Goodness me. I'm so glad I'd never heard about conspiracy theories, man.
I was gonna say, I was gonna start asking about that because that could
Oh,
really send you off. But and I'm sure
yeah,
you've put this together. But you look at, um, the stories starting from your childhood all the way up until what you've said most recently. It
yeah,
really fits the profile for what would develop something like this, or at least
yeah,
develop something that looked like this. I mean, betrayal after betrayal, both uh, physically uh, and sexually, you know, uh,
yeah.
tormented basically, and then
Mm,
along with this supernatural aspect being sort of taunted by the
that's right.
supernatural here and there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's you didn't have a good setup there, buddy.
No, no, that's right, mate. The odds were stacked against me. Um, but hey, everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, so after that, I kind of decided that I wanted to stop taking the drugs. I wanted to stop doing all that. I spent quite a lot of time just by myself, or like with my parents and stuff like that. But a lot of my friends didn't see much of me. I lost my girlfriend that I had at the time. I just it felt, I went through a lot of rejection again, and I became even more depressed because like my hope for the future. I think really, as a teenager, I had kind of like decided to follow the course of kind of self-destruction, but a part of me still thought, oh, I can get off sometime if I want. But at this point, it was like, no, I crashed. There's no getting out of this. And when you hear that, you're going to be on medication the rest of your life, and I think internally for me, it was like, no one's ever going to understand you. You're going to be an island forever, and there's nothing you can do about it. Wah, ha, 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 ha,
Right,
kind
right. Yeah,
of.
the hopelessness. The
Yeah,
hopelessness and despair being the biggest killers in all of it.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, so yeah, 17. My abstinence from drugs didn't last very long though, and my abstinence from kind of the wrong people didn't last very long either. So it wasn't long before I was kind of I was on medication, so and I was stable enough. I decided I wanted to get my own place, so I was able to get a small, like, I would call it an apartment, but it was just like a room, um, and it was right next door to my drug dealer. Um, and so I moved out. I went in there. This room, it was horrible, man. It was like like off a horrible movie or something, just dark grey. Like you could hear the pipes dripping all the time, and oh, it's just
So
so
real
close.
scummy place. How old were you at
It
this
was.
point?
It's like 17, 18, something
Okay.
like
All
that.
right. So you pretty much moved out as soon as you could.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I wanted my independence. Um, it took me a long time to come to terms that actually it might not be everybody else in the world that's wrong. No, sorry, that it took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that I could be wrong,
Yeah.
that it could be my perception. But that kind of still left me depressed because it's like, well, how do I deal with all of this stuff that I'm feeling and thinking? I had no idea. Um, I ended up moving out of that little flat, moving back in with my parents, and then I ended up moving back out of my parents and moving into like sheltered accommodation. So like a house with five other young people living in it, and there was like an adult there all the time, kind of like social services kind of thing.
Okay.
Just so there was someone. I think they call it supported living. So there's someone there to talk to if you need someone to talk to.
Sure.
And yeah, and during that time, I just went downhill. So so I used to get money. The government gave me a sickness payment every 2 weeks. Every time I got that payment, I actually already owed it out for drugs and alcohol.
Oh
So
wow.
I'd get my payment, pay it back off, and then I'd have nothing. So sometimes I wouldn't eat for like 3 or 4 days.
Holy
Uh,
smokes.
it's kind of embarrassing, but I didn't. I maybe showered every 3 weeks. I wasn't brushing my teeth. I wasn't looking after myself. I just smelled. It was pretty bad. It's pretty
Wow.
bad. Um,
Yeah, so this
yeah,
living on your own thing didn't seem to be working out too well.
yeah, no, yeah, I had it nailed, man. If that was the image I wanted to go for.
You
But I
really
mean,
were
I
going
even.
full train spotting there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I used to walk around town taking food out of the bins, picking up cigarette ends off the floor, so I could take them home and re-roll them into roll-ups and smoke them.
All right.
It, you know, I was sleeping with anybody,
Yeah.
um, and I had such issues, man. Um, Sometimes I would just cry myself to sleep at night, and sometimes I was scared of going to sleep just because, as well, at the same time, I used to have terrible nightmares that were so real, just like that I was being tormented and stuff.
Right, right.
Um, so some of the guys that lived in the house as well, they were okay, but I just kind of felt like that I was never able to let anybody
Yeah.
into to have an actual relationship. So it was just after the Twin Towers had come down, and I remember watching that in this flat of my dealers. And was that in the September?
Uh
9/11 was in
yeah, yeah, September 11th.
September 11th. Is that why it's 9/11?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
exactly why.
Okay.
Wow, I
Well, that
don't think I've ever had to explain that to anybody. We're
I
really
did.
culturally connecting here.
I always knew it was 9/11, but I'm like, maybe. Oh no, if it would have been the thing is, you guys. Wait. So
Yeah,
what's the
we
11 stand
switched. You
for?
guys put your day before your month. You
Yeah.
guys do day, month, year. We do month, day, year. For some
Yeah.
reason, makes no sense, but it made for a catchy numerical nickname for 9/11.
Right. So for me, it would probably be like
It
11/9.
would be 11/9, which doesn't
Right.
hold as much psychic
No,
weight.
no, yeah, no, it's true, absolutely. So I saw the 9/11, and about a month later, I mean, I didn't think anything to 9/11 as in profound, or I was just like, whoa, that's crazy.
Uh huh.
Okay, let's just carry on with the normal day. I mean, compared to some of the stuff that was going on in my mind, and I honestly, I don't mind. I don't mean to sound insensitive,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I didn't. I just thought, well, that's happening in America. I mean, America's crazy. You're like America. What's that puppet thing? The Team America Police thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I watched
Team
that. I thought
America,
that was
World
America.
Police.
Absolutely, yeah. To me, in my mind, that was sort of the how you guys all saw each other.
Yeah, sure.
That, that that's the kind of, yeah. So it was a month after 9/11. I was in town looking for discarded cigarette ends. Um, Someone called me over. It was a. I live in a market town, so there's a big market square, and it's quite busy on market days. Um, and someone called me over, a friend of mine, and she introduced me to a guy that she knew. Excuse me. Oh, well, this guy was at Bible college. We have a Bible college about 5 miles away from where we live, which is really weird. It's an Assemblies of God Bible college, and so we got talking. He was out on the streets to to witness to people, and he got talking, and like he asked me about what I believe and stuff like that, and I must have come out with some real nonsense like
The stars talk to me, and I astral
right.
project with Bill Clinton.
I, right, that wasn't my exact words, but he must have been thinking, "Whoa, I wonder if I've bitten off more than I can chew here." But no, I told him a little bit. Like I was schizophrenic and stuff like that, and he started telling me about Jesus. He started, he said to me about Jesus dying on the cross and stuff like that, and to be honest, because of all of my walls my emotional walls and my mental walls, I didn't really know what he was saying. I wasn't really listening, but in my heart, I knew what he was saying was true. Um, because in my mind, I'd thought about so many different possibilities about life and stuff like that. I mean, I did believe that we were evolving, and we would evolve one day into aliens, species kind of thing. But as he was talking to me about Jesus, something in my heart, I knew he was telling the truth. So, and then he said, "Can I pray for you?" I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure. You know, you can pray for me in your own time." I was thinking. He's like, "Come on then, we'll just go around the corner."
Not trying to
I
make
mean,
a big scene here or anything.
no, no, that we were literally visible to possibly like 80 to 100 people. But anyway, he takes me around the corner, starts praying for me, and he starts speaking in tongues, which is something that I had never heard of or whatever. And as he's praying and praying and praying, my eyes go shut. My arms go straight out in front of me like I'm holding something. And it's like I'm holding heaven in my hands.
Whoa.
It's like the power of God was resting upon me. And it was like nothing I'd ever experienced in my life. It was intense.
Wow.
And he's praying for me, and he's praying for me. Eventually he stops praying for me, and I'm there with my eyes closed, my hands out, and I'm thinking, I don't want this to end. I just want to be in this place forever, because this is amazing. And knowing that kind of peace and that love, it kind of highlighted just how much like evil and wickedness and depravity and awfulness I'd experienced up to then, And he asked me if I want to give my life to Jesus. And I had this internal battle because I wanted to say yes, but I felt like I couldn't, like something was holding me, my chest or something. But I managed to say yes, which was a big deal. And so he led me in a prayer. And it's like, Lord, please help me to live the life you created me to live instead of the life that I've made for myself. Like, thank you for dying on the cross for my sins. Help me to live for you. And it was an amazing, amazing encounter. I didn't get this guy's number. I don't think I had a mobile phone at the time. I went to church. Went to the local church that week. I felt quite uncomfortable about going. It was quite funny. So we're in this church service, and I've never been. It was a Assemblies of God church, kind of like Pentecostally. I'd never been to anything like that before.
Yeah.
And they were asking for testimonies, and I didn't even know what a testimony was. People were getting up and speaking, and I'm like, I felt like I've got something to share. So I get up, like the pastor's looking at me like, oh, what's this guy gonna do? So I got up and I started singing "Oh Happy Day" from Sister, and I gave it everything a cappella, and I don't know what the congregation were thinking, because they were wide-eyed, like, what's this guy doing? And upon receiving this kind of reaction, I was really embarrassed. It seemed like a good idea until I was up there doing it. And
Isn't that how it is a lot of times?
Yeah.
Seemed like a wonderful idea until I got up there and everybody was staring at me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, so it
Absolutely.
sounds like you got the full treatment.
I did, but I mean, I was a long way off, Basil.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. I was so messed up. Like I went to that church twice, and then I didn't go back because I just felt uncomfortable. Um, and in the 6 months after that, my nightmares started getting worse. Um, my sort of demonic manifestations started getting worse.
Oh, of course.
Like so, like I did have a Bible because they gave me a Bible, and I'd sit in my little room and I'd open the Bible and I'd throw my Bible, but it wasn't me. It was a completely involuntary thing. My arm just launched it across the room.
Wow.
Um, I I would I would be in my bath in my room looking in my mirror, and I'd see all these demon faces in my reflection. It was awful.
Wow.
And in my mind, I became very scared that I was going to go to hell. Um, and think it went on like that for about 6 months. I did try praying, and I do believe that there were times during those 6 months where God was able to comfort me, but it was a battle just to hold on to that hope because there was so much going on. The guy that led me to the Lord, his name was Paul. He was first year and doing his first year at Bible college. Well, about 6 months later, I was in the market, and right in the distance, right, I saw a bright, shining, glorious, glowing ball of light. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, is everybody seeing this? Is everybody seeing this or what? And so I just stayed where I was. And as this light, from like, I don't know, I do meters, like 200 meters away, it was coming closer and closer. It was Paul, and he was just shining like an angel.
Whoa.
He was, and obviously nobody else could see him like that, but like in the spiritual, he was like this massive ball of light. Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, so I got talking to him, told him I was really scared. I didn't want to go to hell, and I was a wreck. And I think a lot of stuff came out. And he took me home, found out where I lived, because I had another. Oh no, yeah. By this point, okay, I'd actually spent a month on the psychiatric ward in the hospital. So in this 6 months, I went in for assessment on the psychiatric ward, which was interesting. I got in with a girl there, which was bad news.
Yeah, that doesn't
But
sound like a good situation.
no, I'll not say any more about that. And even I went into the hospital and I smuggled some weed in, and I was smoking it out of the hospital window. It was terrible.
When will he learn, everybody? When will he
Yeah.
learn?
Soon. And yeah, so this guy Paul, he started taking to me church. Went to 3 services every Sunday. We'd go to Bible studies. He would come round to my place and he would pray with me. We went to a Baptist church, we went to an AOG church, and we went back to the Baptist church in the evening. And that went on. And God started, I got baptized, started speaking in tongues. I was still very broken. Basil, I had a very childlike faith because I was so conscious that I could not depend on myself that I became very dependent on the Lord for everything.
Right.
About a year and a half after I gave my life to the Lord, and there's lots of cool little stories that things that the Lord did in between there, but for the sake of time, basically we went to a deliverance service in London through some mutual friends that we had. They were doing a breaking the chains of Freemasonry seminar thing, and we went there. We knew the people that were hosting it, the church there, and my illness was awful. It, like the screaming, the visions, the fear. I, there was just that Satan did not want me to go to that meeting. And I remember being in London where it was. I was sat in the back of the car, driving around a roundabout, and I knew that God had given me a vision of that night about a year before. So I knew I was on the right track, and I just had to trust Him, even though I didn't know. I wasn't like able to control my own self.
Right.
And we went to this deliverance meeting, and there was a big church with probably like 200 people in there, and they were basically leading people in prayers, renouncing different occult things, and it was like kind of potluck. We don't know if you've done this or not, but if you just renounce it anyway, it can't do you any harm.
Yeah, sure.
Well, somehow we'd managed to be on the front row. I don't know. And as I'm praying through these renunciations, my face starts manifesting this like vampire werewolf thing.
What?
And yeah, and I'm like hissing and snarling and growling, and I can't help it. I can't stop it. And I didn't like it. It wasn't very nice.
No, sure.
um, so at the end, they prayed with me, and they, they were like trying to cast demons out and stuff. And it was so apparent, like, I was growling, and I didn't get full deliverance that night, but we arranged to go back to like a healing retreat that they did a month or so later. And my friend Paul, he was paying for it all. He was paying for the fuel, the accommodation, and the food and stuff. And he took me to that. And while we were in this lovely chapel in the middle of beautiful countryside, two guys praying for me, one on each arm, casting the spirits out and stuff, and it was such an intense razor's edge battle, because the way the enemy works so often is he has to get you to kind of corrupt your own conscience to be able to take more ground. So in certain circumstances, there'd be a voice saying, do this, hit this person, kick that person, be mean to this person. And whenever you do it, it's like you're giving ground of yourself over to the enemy. And I'd learned that kind of this was the case. Even when I didn't understand it, I didn't want to just give myself over to evil.
Right.
But when these guys were praying for me, I knew if I'd have decided within myself to let the demons take over, I could have thrown those guys across the room.
Sure, you hear stories about that all the time.
Right, like the demoniac, Gerasene. It was like that. But no, praise God, they prayed for me. They cast demons out of me, and it was amazing, because it was like parts of my soul I began to feel for the first time in my whole life.
Wow.
Certain aspects of my own self, my own personality, where for so long it was like I would just had access denied. I wasn't even allowed to feel things within my own sort of emotional spectrum or whatever. It's crazy.
That is crazy. I mean, that's got to be an amazing moment when you can finally start to, and I imagine things start to seem a little clearer after that. You start to see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And
oh, brother. It was the beginning. It was the first major, or was the massive step in the beginning of a journey of sort of healing and restoration.
And how long ago was that?
That was like in 2003.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it was amazing. It was amazing, but I was worn out.
Yeah.
I was emotionally and spiritually worn out. I remember being at home when we got back, and sheesh. So I was at home. I'm sure I was like praising and worshiping the Lord in my flat, and I hear a knock at the door, and I'm like, oh, I wonder who that is. So I go to the door, open it up, and there was this flipping, ugly, evil, heinous cowboy demon at my
It's always the
door.
Cowboys, man. The Cowboys are
Really?
making. Yeah, I've had a couple other people say that, dark
No way.
spirits or demons are showing up as cowboys everywhere.
Do you remember Eddie from Iron Maiden?
I mean, I'm familiar
He
with
was
the
like
band.
the band Iron Maiden have like this mascot, and he's like this zombie, gnarly thing with long white hair.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anyway, people know he is. It looked like him at my front at my door, and I was just like, "Get out of here in the name of Jesus!" And it
Wow.
was like, poof, he disappeared,
Hey, there you
and
go.
I I could see where he'd kind of gone off and through the trees and stuff. The trees were moving where he'd gone. And I was like, yeah, this kind of authority in the name of Jesus thing that I've been hearing about, it's for real. It, it's not just when other people are doing it for me, but because I'm a Christian, I have this authority as well. Um, yeah, so it was amazing. It
Yeah,
was
that's
absolutely amazing.
fantastic. Now, after, I mean, that seems like a landmark moment in your journey, having,
Yeah,
having those things dealt with, and obviously, it probably has been a whole other journey since then. I mean, it's been 13 years. That's comparatively almost like another lifetime, or at
yeah,
least another
yeah.
half lifetime.
It is absolutely it is, and sometimes it's difficult to even remember some of the aspects. I was really praying that I'd be able to remember, the key points so that people can,
Yeah.
you know, relate and see just how bad it was. I mean, people that know me now, they would never believe if people don't believe when I say that I used to be paranoid schizophrenic. They'd be like, "Are you joking?"
Yeah.
People often don't even believe me that I ever used to do drugs.
Well, see, that's the interesting part about your testimony is, I mean, I don't
Mm,
know if I've ever heard of a paranoid schizophrenic ever not being a paranoid schizophrenic. Um,
right.
I mean, I'm curious, has this been something that you've shared with your parents? I mean, it seems like something
Oh
they've
gosh, yeah.
like what's their deal? Seems like this would be, especially since it's their specialty, it'd be a pretty
I know.
compelling case study.
I know, right? Like it is really interesting. Obviously, since that was like 2003, there has been so much happen. I mean, I remember a few years ago, my dad actually said to me that he had considered writing a book about me. Um, you know, be, which is like, oh, okay, that's funny because I thought a
Because
book about me too. um, but I think when I first started going to church, my parents, or especially my dad, they kind of thought that it was just another phase. It wasn't good, so it's just another delusion for me to get into.
right.
Then as time passed by, they kind of saw that actually it was having a positive effect on me.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, about 6 months after I had that deliverance, no, wait, not well, it wasn't long after I had that deliverance that I decided that God wanted me to stop taking medication. Okay. Um, so I spoke to my mum and dad about it. I spoke to my psychiatric nurse who would visit me and give me medication on a weekly basis, and spoke to my psychiatrist, and they were like, okay, we'll let you try and see how it goes, but you have to be monitored. So I stopped taking the medication. My psychiatric nurse would come visit me. How are you doing? You okay? Yeah. And after a certain period of time, I don't know, like 6 months or something like that, he was just like, well, Andrew, I'm glad to say that, I don't need to come and see you anymore.
Wow.
So,
Wow, that's
and
huge.
yeah, I mean, that's like 13 years ago or 14 years ago, something. But I've not had any medication ever since.
Wow. Yeah,
But,
so I mean that's you could pretty much call that a healing. I mean, you've been
yeah,
delivered.
amen, brother. If the sun sets you free, you shall be free indeed.
There you go. Amen. Wow. So
Yeah.
I mean, so obviously my life must be much better now, but you said one of your kids was 11 or something, right?
Right, yeah.
So you must have started making a quick recovery pretty quick after that experience.
It's been an interesting ride. Okay, so not long after I stopped taking medication, I started doing some voluntary work. Um, Not long after that, I started a catering apprenticeship, which I did for 6 months, and that was like entry into employment. Um, I did a. Have you heard of YWAM,
Yeah,
Youth
of
with a
course.
Mission?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I did a year with YWAM, and I'm sure that God sent YWAM to my town just for me because people in the church didn't really know how to handle me because I was a bit off the wall, to be honest.
Sure.
I was the guy who was like full of passion with no wisdom. Um, if there was someone new in church, I would just go sit next to them and, hi, how are you doing? Like some people found that a little bit intimidating.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I did a year with Youth of the Mission with Brian and Vanessa, and lived with them and their two kids and another guy from the States. And there was probably about six other um, guys who were doing a gap year. Um, and that was really cool. I learned a lot about relationships and being part of a family. It's like the way that God was kind of getting me used to sort of normality, especially in a Christian setting. And that was a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful time. And Brian and Vanessa, we'd meet just by ourselves once a week, and we'd talk about stuff and pray and stuff like that. And God really blessed me through those guys. Then they had to go back to the States. They were from is Kansas in Wichita, or is Wichita in Kansas? They were from
Uh,
Wichita anyway.
I believe so. Yeah, Wichita's in Kansas. I hope. I'm going to show my knowledge of the those states, but I believe that's true.
So, and then I got a job in a shop in my town, and while I was there, I mean, I was quite the evangelist, or when I say that, I would talk to people about Jesus all the time. And there was a girl there who I got talking to. We both worked at the opposite end, like the back end of the store, and we got talking, and I told her about my faith and stuff like that, and she started coming to our home group, and she gave her life to Jesus. She got baptized, and then we started going out, and then within from the time that we started going out, we probably got married about like 6 months later.
Oh, quick
And
movers over there.
I know, I know, and it was too soon. My seriously,
Yeah, no,
my
sure.
my pastor was like tried to tell me like, do you not think you should slow down and stuff like that? And I was like, yes, you're right, and then went off and did the complete opposite. In my mind, I thought I was right, and that God had it all in store, and all He had a plan for it all. Um, and yeah, so I mean, I still remember times where, like around that time, where I would think that God is telling me something or to do something, and it turns out it really wasn't God. So there was a lot of discernment that I still didn't have. And so sometimes I could make myself look like a real idiot. Um, yeah, I tried to get the church to give me money so I could go to this conference in London because I knew that halfway through the conference I was going to be given a special message and I'd have to stand up in the middle and shout something out, and that would be like the problem solved or something. But then like someone explained to me that that sounded a bit nuts. So
So you kind of, it sounds like it was definitely a recovery process that you were going through. Um,
absolutely.
but I mean, it seems like nowadays, I gotta say, you sound like you really got your act together, and you're doing pretty well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. No, I really am. But, you know, you want to get to conspiracy theories. So I married this girl, and after 3 years, we had two kids, a girl and a boy. And when, so 3 years after we got married, she didn't want me around no more. Okay. She didn't want to go to church, and she kind of lost her faith. we went to a church that was I didn't know what it was at the time, but it's what you would call like an emergent church. So
Mm-hmm.
they were all into like Rob Bell and like asking lots of questions that don't help. So she kind of lost her faith. Um, and then in 2009, I had to come back to my parents' house. Um, yeah, and it's that kind of was a real important part of my life because back at my parents, I was working, I was seeing my kids on the weekend and during the week once a week. I didn't really have any people to hang around with, so I used to spend a lot of time praying and reading the Bible, like a lot, and crying out to God, just crying out to God. I was so damaged. I was still all the rejection and stuff from the broken marriage, and I think it hit a deep wound that I hadn't really been able to address. Um, During that time, I started doing street evangelism as well, and shared the gospel, saw some people get saved, and did a lot of reading. Started going on the internet at my parents' house, and I don't know how I got into conspiracies, but I already had this idea. I knew that Freemasons ruled the world, and I knew that they wanted us to live in a cashless society because there's a guy called Barry Smith and me and Paul used to watch his videos and they were really cool, but it just seemed kind of like far out there.
Yeah.
Now, when I started getting into learning about conspiracy theories and stuff like that, it blew my mind. As it does for all of us. You start to learn stuff, but for me, I'd already gone through years of my life thinking that there's this giant conspiracy against me.
Yeah, I gotta say that seems like it would potentially trigger some negative things from the past there.
I don't know. I think I think the way I reacted was probably very similar to the way a lot of people reacted. Like posting things on Facebook like a lot
Yeah.
and expecting people to realize.
Right.
Um, I I didn't really try and talk to many people about it. I think in a way because I know what it's like to kind of talk to people and not be understood, and so it's best just to be careful about what you say and stuff like that. But my ex-wife, like, she was following all my posts on Facebook, and she was like trying to insinuate that I was kind of slipping back downhill. Um, we had to go through a court battle because she wouldn't let me see my kids, and which I won. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't get all that involved in church, although I started going back to the first church I ever went to, and it was nice and it was grounded. Um, it's a much better church than the one that I got baptized in, which was very much like Toronto, people rolling around on the floor making funny noises and weirdness, which was very weird when you were mentally ill. Like, I saw some weird stuff going on in the spirit at that during that time. But so I moved back in with my parents. I was here for about 3 years. Um, Really, that time in prayer that really paid off. In my relationship with the Lord. A guy that I met through the internet encouraged me to share my testimony on the internet. So I did that. I wrote it, and then he was like, "Why don't you make a video?" So I made a video. I created a YouTube channel, and in 2012, I got in touch with one of the British Christian TV channels. It's called Revelation TV. I sent them an email. Would you like me to come on the show? They do a show called Testimony Time, which is just like you go on and share your testimony. It's like half an hour. And they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to have you on." So I got the privilege of going on TV. That interview from 2012 is actually still on YouTube on my channel. And because of that interview, which is, I have about 60,000 views on that, that's like my highest viewed video. I started making videos talking about um, mental health and Christians and like freedom in Christ and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I got the chance to Skype with people, pray with them and stuff like that, and it was great. You know, I've met some really cool people, and so since then I got married again like just over 3 years ago, but I found a ministry in sharing what God has done in my life as an encouragement to other Christians and non-Christians that nothing is impossible with God. Um, and like you said, it's not the kind of story that you hear very often. I've heard that so many times. People that, love God, go to church from every different kinds of denomination, that they've never heard of God healing someone from mental illness. So that's just kind of encouraged me and spurred me on to just carry on with my ministry and stuff like that of making YouTube videos. Um, yeah. And
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the to be able to speak especially about mental health when it's such kind of a,
yeah.
I think that we're making progress both as people as of faith and as the society at large, you know, being able
Mm,
to talk about mental illnesses more, but especially in the Christian community, uh, a lot of times, it's not like it's not talked about, but it's not an open conversation.
no.
And, certainly there's a lot of aspects of it, especially in your story, that do kind of
Mm,
hinge on a supernatural aspect.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that Christians that have got mental health, whether it's schizophrenia or bipolar or just depression, anxiety or whatever, that know would say that they know that it's spiritual, that it's demonic, but they don't know what to do about it, and it's kind of hard.
Right.
Um, it's hard. Like I remember I kept a list of everybody that got in touch with me, and I'd pray for them on a daily basis and stuff. And I wanted to, because I mean, obviously, Basil, I believe in deliverance. I, bel you know, and when you look into the scriptures in the Bible that would pertain to people in a similar situation to me, you know, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I've not given you a spirit of slavery to fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. Well, who needs a sound mind more than somebody that's schizophrenic? You
Right.
know,
Right. Yeah.
that's that's an inheritance. I think, and I've had some struggle because I've had close friends that are like mentally ill Christians that haven't found healing, and I I think that the bottom line when it comes to what the enemy is allowed to do in our lives, when it comes down to our own ability or understanding to prevent it or whatever, it comes down to our perception. So the way that how, what do I believe about myself, about God, and about life? Now, if you're my disciple, you know the truth will set you free. If you know the truth about God, and obviously that's sort of revelation. It has to be sort of unfolded and unfolded as we grow. But the truth about God, the truth about ourselves, that we are loved, because I know that a lot of my mental illness, the Bible talks about, the shield of faith is able to put out the fiery darts of the enemy.
Yeah.
Well, fiery darts to me are like statements that you believe in your heart, right? So it was revealed to me that I grew up believing no one will ever be able to understand you. No one will ever be able to reach you. Nobody can protect you from me. These were, you are nothing. These were things that were like darts in my heart that created wounds that could not be healed until those dark lies were pulled out and replaced with truth and then given time to heal in the love of God. And, I think so often we as Christians can be sort of held in I don't know, a religiousness or denominational beliefs. If you're a Christian, you can't have demons. I
Right,
don't know.
right.
Um, and I've had to be very, very careful because honestly, I have grown in discernment a lot, but it's through an analysis and comparing stuff with the Bible and seeking God for like I know that God wants us to be free in terms of like to know Him. Not everybody that gets prayed for is necessarily going to get healed. But I believe that sort of your spiritual life, if you are born again, a relationship with God where you know His love. I mean, yes, you have ups and downs and seasons and stuff, but you should be able to know the love of God. And if you're not experiencing the love of God as a Christian, or if you're not experiencing, the hope, the comfort, the peace, the blessings of God in that manner, then I honestly believe that there's something in the way that needs to be dealt with, whether it's the result of something we've done or something that's been done to us that's affected our heart and our outlook. But if we can get our view about God and our view about ourselves and a view about the world, if we can get that in line with the scripture, then actually we shall know the truth and the truth will set us free.
Amen. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, and you know, it's all part of that journey too. A lot of, and this speaks to what you said. A lot of
Mm,
what I think breaks down the maybe the faith in prayer, the faith in uh, deliverance, or
mm,
whatever the works of the Holy Spirit might be here on earth. A lot of that comes from the idea that, like, well, if God loves you, the prayer would be answered, and it should be
mm,
answered 100% of the time. And if it doesn't get answered 1% of the time, that means that the theology of God loving you and healing you isn't
mm.
isn't exactly right. And it's
It
those
doesn't work
one.
like that, though, does
No,
it?
and look, I'm not saying I know exactly
Yeah,
how it works, but I do know that it has to be a holistic experience. A lot of times it's
yeah,
whether you've got some stuff you're not addressing in your life, or whether you maybe have some twists and turns about your perception of God and how He feels about you. All
yeah,
those sorts of
yeah.
things just can affect our reception to what God's trying to do.
Right. And I still get it wrong. I still like so much. One thing that there's a guy on YouTube, one of the preachers, because I mean I've gone through so many different preachers and different kinds of doctrines, trying to find the thing that's the absolute truth. And I've gone round and round in circles and up and down and whatnot, but God is faithful, and I've always found God to be faithful. But there was a guy who said, people go to Bible college and learn these different subjects, but it should be that we go and there should be like a course in faith like a child, because very often we complicate things, um, and we make things too complicated. You know, um, the best times in my walk with God, and it's kind of hard to be real about this, but like in the early days when I was like healing and stuff like that, I didn't depend on myself. Um, I had faith like a child. I remember
Right.
one time I was mowing the grass of the church for free, and I had no food, and it got to lunchtime, and I wanted to ask the youth pastor if he would lend me a couple of pounds so I could buy some food, but I didn't dare because I was scared. So I decided to go take a walk into the town, and I thought, just like Abraham, the Lord will provide. You know, so I walked into town, and my friend Paul had been telling me about, when you pray, be specific about what you pray for. So then when God answers your prayer specifically, you'll know this has to be from God. So I was walking into town, and I was like, what do I fancy to eat? And this sounds silly, okay? But I was like, Lord, please give me a sausage roll, okay? Wait, please give me a sausage roll in a paper bag with a bite taken out of it, okay? don't know why. I don't know why. I think in my mind I thought, well, it has to be a miracle if someone takes a bite out of it. So, so I walk along, sit right in the middle of the market square. I just sit there like 20 minutes. I'm praising God. I'm looking around. I get this feeling in my spirit. Right, my sausage roll should be ready now. I look around. I look around, and I see that there's some like birds fighting over some food. And you know me, I don't mind eating food off the floor or whatever. So I went over to it, and I'm like, I saw this cheese. It's like a cheese pastry thing. It's not got cheese in it, so it wasn't like slimy or anything. It's like whatever. I was like, I bent over to pretend to tie my shoelace while I beat the birds away from this food I was about to eat, and I picked it up, and I'm like, Lord, this isn't a sausage roll, but thank you anyway. I took a bite out of it. I look round, and in the distance, I see standing up a white paper bag, standing up. I'm like, thank you, Lord. I go walking over to this bag. I pick it up, and do you know what it had inside, Basil?
I bet I
Can
could
you guess?
guess. I bet I could guess. Lord
Right?
is God is good. Sausage roll with a bite taken out of it.
You're on the money, man. A sausage roll with a bite taken out of it, and I was blown away. I'm like, how did he do that? How did he do that? Like, was it an angel? The sausage roll angel? Was it a human agent? Did he have the birds come and fly along and just drop it in place? What that taught me was it doesn't have to be a big prayer to get the attention of God,
Yeah.
you know? And that kind of faith like a child that's like, the Lord will provide. And I think as time's gone by, I have had to deal with being able to be more self-reliant, but because, I've worked full time pretty much for the last, 12, 13 years. I drive a car, I'm a married man. I do the finances, I arrange holidays and all that stuff. That it's actually, what I'm trying to do is like, right now, I mean, I want to have that faith like a child again that says, I want to dare to do things that a child would do rather than just being self-reliant. So
Yeah,
I
isn't that how it is, man? I gotta say, there are definitely times where I fall into that as well, and I think a lot of listeners can identify with that as well, which is, we've seen God do amazing things. I mean, He's done amazing things in my body. He's done amazing things in my life, and
Amen.
sometimes you just forget. You either
Yeah,
forget or you get into an attitude where you don't want to make specific requests because you don't want to have that moment where the specific request doesn't get fulfilled or whatever.
right.
And you kind of
Yeah,
you think it's maturity or whatever, but we're not. It certainly is more exciting when you're living with that faith like a child.
yeah, absolutely. Because you pray about everything, and then God is able to move in so many more ways. When we rely on ourselves, nothing sort of, I don't, nothing magical happens.
Right,
Like nothing
exactly.
amazing happens. So, so if we pray every day, God, please let me bump into somebody today that I can share the gospel with. Lord, please help me, give me a situation where I can pray for somebody. If we hunger after God in that way, then those things will start happening. Because yeah, it's been my prayer, Basil. It's kind of like why I do what I do now with the whole YouTube thing. It's the prayer of my heart, especially in the first few years of being saved, is Lord, I want to see people's lives transformed from darkness to light, and listening to the Joyspiracy theory, it's been such a blessing to hear some of the amazing stories from people from all different backgrounds and stuff, and it's just blown me away. I'm so glad that you do what you do. I love this show so much, man. I honestly do. I don't mean to like
No,
make you
no,
feel
I
awkward.
appreciate it. Keep it coming.
Well, it is. It's awesome because like you're funny, but you're smart too. Like, and you've realized, it must have been God that you realized that it's hard to live in a world where the darkness is layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and it touches every living soul in this world. And there's organized darkness, there's chaos, there's the plans, there's the things we know about, there's the things we don't know about, there's the things we speculate about. There's so much going on, and it is difficult to find people to talk to about it in church. I'm sure we all will probably struggle with that. And to be able to, listen to this show, I must like this is the Joy Spiracy theory is probably I've listened to it on average about 4 hours a day for the last 3 weeks. So like Basil, I'm like your best friend. You're just here talking to me, and I'm sure there's so many people that they're blessed by your life because you're real. You don't try and be something that you're not, and that's something that this show's taught me as well. With because you have so many different kinds of guests on. I mean, the emotional intelligence stuff that just kind of blew me away.
Right, right.
You
That's
know?
he's
Yeah,
Mike Davis. Good job, buddy. Shout out to you.
yeah, yeah. Go Mike. It just, you know, actually, yeah. I want to just give testimony about that because since listening to that, and the Lord really ministered to me about it, is the importance of being thankful, um, but knowing that God wants you to have joy. That how important it is to actually um, think positively, for lack of better words, but to think about what's good, to have good things to think about. But I think I was before I listened to the show, man, I was like so serious because of the weight of the world, and I don't know. It's like I feel like God has said to me, Andrew, it's okay to be happy. I'm like, I can't be happy. Look at all the chaos and stuff like that. Yeah, but and it dawned on me, you can actually touch people's lives through being happy.
Yeah.
And then they'll ask you why you're happy. And you can say, well, I listened to the Joy Spiracy Theory, man. You should listen to it.
Well, you make a good point, man. And this is, I've started doing some solo episodes, and I have some more planned to come out too. But it really is true. A lot of times we don't feel like we should be happy. We feel like we should
Yeah,
suffer as Jesus suffered, and we should cry as God cries when evil
yeah,
goes throughout the world. But you got to keep in mind that part of evil's agenda, is to create chaos and to take away
mm,
happiness and joy. And I mean, that's one of the main characteristics of God and what he has in store for us is a peace and a joy
amen.
and a happiness. And so to deny that, we're denying a main characteristic of God's plan for our lives. And
Wow.
it shows up in different ways. As I said a few weeks ago, even you can be in a melancholy state, but you can still have your soul rooted in joy and in happiness, even if your mental emotions are feeling something different. Your spirit
Amen.
can still be rooted in what God has for you. And that's I'm glad that
Amen.
it speaks to you, man. And I just love hearing that people enjoy the show and listen to the show and share the show with their friends. And I gotta say, if it wasn't for the listeners just like you coming on the show and sharing your testimony, it would just be me talking into the void some more.
For real. For
So,
real.
amen, brother. Well, you know what? This has just been an amazing conversation, and your testimony and your whole story, and just the timeline, the arc of your story is just so
Right.
drastic and speaks so much to the goodness of God and what He has for us, and what it looks like when we finally give into it.
That's right.
Which is a lot of times people are like, well, if God's there, he'll just convert me. It'll just be done. Well, it certainly takes an effort on our side, and at the very least, giving in to what God has for us. And I'm just so blessed by hearing how far you've come, buddy.
Thanks, man.
And you
God
share it
bless
all,
you.
and you shared it all. And now, don't think we're gonna skip the last questions, but you share it all on a YouTube channel. You've been doing your YouTube channel for a while. What's the name?
Right, you've probably heard this before. It's ex-schizophrenic media.
Oh yeah, you got a shout out for your support on the Patreon last episode. Thanks, buddy.
For real.
For
Yeah, man.
real.
You're welcome. I believe in you, bro. So I've got a YouTube channel called Ex Schizophrenic Media. Also got a YouTube channel called Ex Schizophrenia. Sorry, Ex Schizophrenic. Did I say schizophrenia? Ex Schizophrenic Media and Ex Schizophrenic Media Favorites. The first channel is just my videos, and then the favorites is videos that I like.
Yeah.
And there is a Facebook page called Ex Schizophrenic Media, and I'm really excited because actually I don't have a name yet, but I am in the process of starting up a podcast.
Hey, there we go.
You see, you've inspired me, bro.
Yeah, buddy.
So I am planning on starting a podcast that talks about Christians, mental health, deliverance, freedom in Christ, prayer, doing Bible study and stuff like that. And I want to do something similar to what you're doing with the guests and testimonies and speakers and stuff like that. So what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to be doing the podcasts, and then instead of, because most of my videos on YouTube are videos of me talking into my laptop camera,
Sure.
Yeah. And I've got a lot of I've got like 6,500 subscribers, which is quite a lot for just a regular guy like me.
Yeah.
But I've got a kind of niche market, really. And what I'm praying for and praying into is I want to be able to make some really high quality short videos. So like, the kind of stuff that when people see it, when it's shared on social media, they don't just flick off.
Sure.
But people, it'll be eye-catching, it'll have the testimony in there, it'll have thought-provoking stuff in there, and people will want to share it.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who he's really good with film and stuff like that, but he's just having a baby. Well, he's not personally having a baby, but he's just having a baby at the moment right now.
Sure.
So hopefully in a couple of months, we can start putting one or two of those out every month or two.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
it's going to be like
6,500 followers. You got to be doing something right over there.
Right. And like yourself, it's difficult to always get back to everybody. So the idea with doing a podcast is people can ask me questions and I can respond to the questions on the podcast, and then that'll probably answer like a whole bunch of people's questions instead of trying to respond one at a time over Facebook and stuff. Because when you're married and you've got the kids and you're doing 50 hours a week at work and you're busy, and your kids have got groups and clubs and athletics and blah, 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 there's not a lot of time in the day.
Tell me about it.
So it's Ex Schizophrenic Media on YouTube and on Facebook. I don't have a name for the podcast, but it'll be out sooner or later.
Well, that's awesome, man. Everybody go check that out. Ex Schizophrenic Media. Subscribe to the channel. I'm scrolling through your videos here. You got a good amount of videos on here, so
yeah,
everybody needs to go check that out. So okay, so before we start wrapping things up, buddy, I need to know if you got any if you have any animal friends running around with all those kids that you got.
I don't have any animal friends.
Oh.
I don't have any. I'm sorry.
Do they even have pets in England? Do people keep pets over there? No.
No, it's been illegal since the 18th century. Ever since Henry VIII ate a squirrel, they just banned it. They didn't see the importance of it. So they just pushed. Yeah, they pushed them all into the sea. It's like Prison Planet here, man.
No furry friends for you. Well, I'll apologize for that. I'll pray that somebody out there smokes a little weed, turns on the parliamentary channel, and just wills the pet laws out of existence, so you can get a little furry friend over there.
Why didn't I think of that? So like we had a cat until about a year ago, and he was a beautiful little cat. His name was Shadow. he was probably about 5. Um, and one day he wandered off and he never came home.
Ain't that how it happens, man?
Yeah.
Those
There's,
cats, I certainly had a number of cats in my childhood just sort of wander off and never be seen again. Become coyote
yeah.
food or something.
Yeah. I think like the animal authorities like took him away and rehoused him. We heard,
Oh,
but,
yes.
but
Well,
the kids were devastated, and like the wife, she'd really like a dog, and the kids would love a dog, but I don't want to be like get a dog because they want it, and I'm like, it's not my dog, you got to walk it, but
yeah.
who's going to end up walking it, man?
It's definitely going to be all your responsibility.
Right,
My parents pulled the
right.
same thing when I was a kid. I wanted a dog so badly, and they finally gave in. And the deal was that I take care of the dog. Just turned out being my dad's dog.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, I had cats growing up, and I loved my cat. Cats. My cat knew it was the only person, and it was a person that knew when I was upset on the inside. And it would just come up, sit on my knee, and love me. And yeah, I thank God for cats. Cats are wonderful.
Amen, brother. I got one sitting on my lap right now. She's
Oh,
made a habit out of bugging me every time I sit down to record a podcast. So throughout every podcast I've recorded, I mean every podcast, Canary Cry Radio, Canary Cry News Talk, this
right.
podcast, any podcast I'm a guest on, this cat will just pester me the whole time until I give it a comfortable place to lay. And I'm looking at her now, and she's definitely gained a few pounds over the year.
Oh wow.
She's looking like a little potato now. So
Maybe she's just like putting a bit of weight on, ready for Christmas and the cold weather
it's
and
true.
stuff.
It's her winter coat. We'll see. We'll have to put her on a little kitty treadmill coming next year. But well, good for you, man. Well,
Yeah, man.
hopefully, we'll pray another furry friend. Maybe it just needs to be a cat, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you should
I'm not ready yet.
gaslight your family into thinking that the cat that you bring home is actually a dog.
Yeah.
It's like, here's
I
your new
think one day.
dog. Dad, that's definitely a cat. No, no, no.
No, it's
It's a dog. It's a new type of dog.
oh dear.
Deny, deny, deny. That
It's just like the kind of thing that I'd do. So
yeah, that might not be the best move for an ex-schizophrenic, but you know,
we could get a cat and call it dog.
there you go. I think
Yeah.
that's a good compromise. I think everybody can get on board with that compromise.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right, so some more
Okay.
cultural learning here. Um, well, kind of recently, not very recently, flew through whatever the airport is there in London just for a stopover, and everybody was asking me if I
Yeah.
ate any English food, and obviously
Okay.
the stereotype English food is bland and lots of sausages and carbs, and
Ooh.
the airport isn't necessarily a good cultural representation of the food in a
No.
country, so I said I couldn't speak to that. But do you guys even have juicers over there?
Oh boy. What is a juicer?
Exactly. It's like if you put a sausage in it and then you get the famous English sausage milk.
Right. Well, if it's like sausage milk, we probably have that. Yeah. Like, okay, it's not something that I've done. I've done times where I've just lived off of vegetables,
Uh-huh.
and that's quite interesting. Um, no, I haven't done juicing. It's difficult because from what I've heard, it can be quite costly.
Yeah.
I would be, honestly, I'd be well up for doing some like juice fasts.
Yeah.
Um, I tell you what I have done. Have you ever heard of a product called Huel?
Nope.
Huel. It's
Huel.
Huel like fuel but with a H,
Okay.
right? It's short for human fuel. And it doesn't mean that it's made out of people.
That's a really
Okay.
bad name.
I know. It took me ages to be able to pronounce it. It's like Huel.
Fuel. Like some
Yeah, right.
Scandinavian like traditional sausage milk.
Right. Well, it's kind of like that, except for it's like, oh, it's like, like get protein
Is
shakes
it
and
like
stuff like that.
Soylent, where it's supposed to have like everything you could possibly need
Right.
to survive?
Right, exactly. So it's a mixture of like oats and beans and different stuff with vitamins. It's vegan, it's all natural, and it's like a shake basically. So I was doing this, I ordered this, and it's relatively cheap as well. So you can have one a day, or you can have live off it and have three or four a day. And so I did a couple of weeks where I was just living off this stuff, like liquid diet, and I felt so good, honestly, so good. I'm waiting to be able to reinstate my subscription, so I'm going to
Yeah,
start getting monthly
that's
basis.
that's good. I mean, feeling good is the way to go. I just pulled it up. I'm
Oh
on their
yeah,
website now. That's very interesting.
yeah,
Huh.
it's really nice.
Yeah.
And
I
and one
don't
of
and I don't see human beings on the nutritional info here, so
no, well
that's
they won't show
good.
you that.
No, that's true. You're not obligated to list human derived ingredients.
Yeah, but like on that I could, because I'm a bit overweight. I don't know what my weight is in pounds, but I am like 18 stone, which is what we weigh ourselves in stones over here.
Stone, you don't even do kilograms or anything?
Well, I know what they
You
are, but
guys are like on your own
we
system?
have our own thing.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
like do you ever measure things in feet?
Yeah, of course I measure things in feet.
Right.
I'm an American.
All right. Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Do you
Okay.
do
Calm
feet
down,
over
dude.
there? You do feet?
Well, we used to, but then we went metric.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. But you
But
don't do kilos, you do stones.
no, no, right. Stones, pounds and stones. So it's like 14 pound in a stone, I
Oh my
think.
gosh. Okay.
Anyway, I'm a big guy. I'm like 6 foot. Um, yeah. But when I was doing Huel, I did that. I could have 1800, no, not 1800 calories. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
1800 calories a day,
uh-huh.
and I was okay. So I would just have Huel and like nice big cups of tea, um, and that would do me. So I just did that for like a week or 2 weeks, like a week off, then another week, and I managed to lose 2 stone, which is going. I was 19 stone. I went down to 17 stone, but I don't know what that is
That's a
in
lot.
your
Yeah,
country.
I'm looking here. Stone
Yeah.
14 pounds to 1 stone. Wow.
So I lost 28 pounds in one
Holy
month.
smokes, that's a lot of poundage, brother.
And I felt the healthiest I've felt in a long time. So,
Wow, yeah. I gotta check that
if
out. Huge.
Huel, yeah. And
Okay.
you can get different flavors. And yeah, it's good. It's good. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Okay. Well, good, good, good. All right. Well, I'm glad you got an eye on it, man.
Hmm.
That's the biggest thing. You got to pay attention. That's what I notice. I do okay if I'm just paying attention. If I stop paying attention, it's all pizza
Right.
and opposite
Sausage
whatever.
milk.
Yeah, sausage milk. That's exactly right. Oh,
Yeah.
well, man, this has been fantastic.
It's been a blast.
Schizophrenic Media. Everybody, go check
Amen.
it out. Do you have a website or anything, or you just got the YouTube channel?
No, not yet. I'll get one at some point.
Okay, and
I want one that's a carbon copy of yours.
oh,
Just
I'll give you the code. It's a very secretive Squarespace theme.
wow.
Actually, yeah, we can talk more about that as we go on through the weeks here. I'll help you get started.
Why? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'm assuming that you will make an announcement about your podcast on your YouTube channel
Oh, yeah.
when you do that, so everybody will be able to find it. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, sounds good. Andrew, thank you so much, buddy. This has really been a pleasure.
God bless you, mate. You too.
All
Lots of
right.
love.
And what we will keep in contact, and everybody out there, if you don't subscribe to Ex Schizophrenic Media, I will find you. I will hunt you down. I have a specific set of skills, and it's mainly just making you subscribe to a YouTube channel.
Awesome.
All right, buddy. You have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, bro.
Well, there you have it, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. I definitely did. Andrew is a fantastic fellow with a fantastic testimony and even greater ministry, and things are just, I'm very excited to see what Andrew pulls off and what God does in his life. I hope you guys are too. Make sure to go check out his ministry, his YouTube channel there, Schizophrenic Media. I'm sure it's full of great... Actually, I know it is. I've watched some of his videos. It's good stuff. Go check it out, everybody. Okay, well, I think we're going to start wrapping it up here. Make sure to like the Facebook page. We still got the patreon.com/TheJoyspiracy Theory. Keep an eye out for the redbubble.com/TheJoyspiracy Theory. That'll come out when I get to it. It doesn't exist yet, but it'll be here. Anyways, yep, so do that. Let's see. There was something really important I needed to tell you guys, but I forgot. Anyways, I'll see if I remember. Make sure to share out an episode with one of your friends, everybody. This kind of genre and strange group of Christian folk. We gotta stick together. We tend to hang out on the internet quite a bit and share things back and forth. Why don't we share a little bit of the Joyspiracy Theory? There's more people out there who need it. Certainly do. After scrolling through my Facebook feed, some people need a little bit of the Joyspiracy Theory. So why don't you pick your favorite episode and share that out? And after you do that, head over to iTunes. Head over to iTunes and leave a rating and a review. And I said this on Canary Cry Radio on one of the recent episodes, or maybe it's not even out yet. But, the ratings and reviews really help the iTunes spread the word. It helps other people find the podcast. But also it's nice to read. Gons and I go on there and we read all the reviews that you guys leave. So that's a good way to get a message across to us. If you like what we're doing, please go do that. A rating from 1 to 5 stars. 1 star is I tried to pet a cat and it gave me fleas, and 8, it just swallowed my hand. 5 stars is I tried to pet a cat and it was just a 5-star experience. Leaving a review is leaving all that in words, so make sure to do that. I still got the voicemails on my website there, thejoyspiracytheory.com. Leave a voicemail. There you go, and make sure to tune your guitars this week. Bye-bye.